Okay, so if you're studying literature, chances are you've been told Pride and Prejudice is, the ultimate classic historical romance. But today, we're completely reframing it. We're going to look at this absolute masterpiece not as some stuffy, polite love story, but as a brilliant, biting social satire. We'll dive right into how Jane Austen used razor-sharp wit and irony to just totally roast the society of her time, and honestly, why this book still hits so hard today.
So let's kick things off with literally the most famous opening line in English literature. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Right out of the gate, Austen is winking at the reader. She's setting up this world that is completely obsessed with money, marriage, and status. That truth universally acknowledged? Yeah, it's not actually a truth at all. It's really just the desperate, gossipy mindset of these neighborhood families who look at wealthy single men as basically rightful property for their daughters. And that line right there perfectly sets up the absolute foundation for understanding this entire book: irony. Literary critic George Saintsbury actually pointed out in his preface to the novel that Austen uses this, I love this description, a restrained yet insatiable and ruthless delight to roast her characters. She's not screaming her criticisms from the rooftops. Instead, she wraps them up in this polite, demure language that totally eviscerates the fools, the vain, and the hypocritical. It's so good. So here's our roadmap for deconstructing Austen's playbook. We're going to cover the ultimate social satire, the marriage market matrix, a masterclass in snark, the anatomy of pride, the danger of prejudice, and finally, why Austen still rules.
Section 1. The ultimate social satire, decoding the 19th century.
Let's look at exactly how Austen expertly skewers the restrictive, honestly claustrophobic society of her time. The preface captures her satirical targets perfectly, calling out the Philistinism and rigid morality of 18th and 19th century humanity. Just look at these specific societal flaws. You've got groveling respect for rank, formal pettiness, hidebound morality, materialism, and sheer selfishness. You instantly see these personified in the supporting cast, right? Think of the immortal Mr. Collins. Here's a guy whose groveling respect for rank literally makes him worship the ground the completely overbearing Lady Catherine de Bourgh walks on. Austen is exposing a world obsessed with the appearance of morality and wealth, but completely empty of genuine empathy or common sense.
Section 2. The marriage market matrix, survival versus romance. This brings us to the core economic reality for women in the novel, the brutal fight between financial survival and actual romance. Just look at how this matrix contrasts the driving forces behind our female characters. Keep in mind, the Bennet family estate is entailed away to the pompous Mr. Collins. If Mr. Bennet dies, his wife and 5 daughters are left with virtually nothing. So, Mrs. Bennet's primary motivation? It's pure financial survival. Her entire business in life is getting her daughters married off. Then there's Charlotte Lucas, seeking practical security because she knows she's a financial burden to her family. And finally, you have our heroine, Elizabeth Bennet, who completely bucks the system by holding out for true respect and an intellectual equal. Charlotte's calculated approach to securing a husband really highlights how dangerous it was to leave romance to chance in a world where women couldn't even inherit property. As she boldly puts it, in 9 cases out of 10, a woman had better show more affection than she feels. She's basically saying, secure the man first, figure out the love part later. When Charlotte accepts a proposal from Mr. Collins, the exact same guy Elizabeth literally just rejected, Elizabeth is totally horrified. But Austen uses Charlotte to show us the harsh reality here. For a woman without a fortune back then, marriage was basically the only viable career path. Section 3. A masterclass in snark, dialogue as a weapon. So, how do the smarter characters survive this suffocating world without absolutely losing their minds? It really begs the question, how do you politely destroy someone? I mean, you can't exactly just start screaming at people in an 1800s drawing room. You have to be strategic. And the answer is razor-sharp snark. Mr. Bennet uses deadpan irony as a literal shield. Just listen how calmly he tells his wife, "I have a high respect for your nerves. They are my old friends." We are seeing a man who has totally retreated into sarcasm just to survive being married to a woman of, let's say, mean understanding and uncertain temper. He doesn't yell, he just calmly weaponizes his vocabulary. It's a hilarious coping mechanism, although to be fair, Austen does gently critique him for being a bit too detached from his family's actual crises. Elizabeth uses this exact same tactic to disarm Mr. Darcy's judgmental contempt. When he tries to bait her into a predictable conversation at a dance, she just fires right back. I always delight in overthrowing those kind of schemes. Elizabeth gets it. In a society where women have basically zero structural power, wit is her ultimate defense mechanism. She just absolutely refuses to be intimidated by his wealth or his imposing presence.
Section 4. The anatomy of pride. The first cognitive bias.
Let's look at this first cognitive bias and see how it builds into the core conflicts of the book. Mary Bennet, the bookish sister, actually gives us this vital distinction early on, showing how characters like Darcy suffer from their own inflated self-opinions rather than just superficial vanity. Basically, vanity is caring about what the room thinks of your new dress, but pride is believing you are fundamentally superior to everyone in the room. And this distinction is the engine driving the entire first half of the narrative. Darcy's infamous initial rejection of Elizabeth at the Meryton Ball perfectly encapsulates this crippling, unregenerate pride. She is tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt me. Ouch, right? He refuses to dance with anyone outside his own elite circle, which pretty much alienates the entire town immediately. Darcy's pride has been pampered since birth. He isn't inherently a bad guy, but he is incredibly arrogant and completely fails to see the worth in anyone without his level of wealth or connections. And, of course, Elizabeth overhears this insult, which firmly cements her opinion of him.
Section 5. The danger of prejudice. Judging a book by its cover.
But hey, Elizabeth is far from perfect too. She suffers from her own massive cognitive bias. Tracing her emotional journey, we see how her prejudice builds step by step. Week 1, it kicks off with that huge insult at the ball. By month 3, she is eagerly swallowing Mr. Wickham's slanderous lies about Darcy, honestly just because Wickham is charming and it confirms what she already wanted to believe. It all explodes in month 6 with Darcy's disastrous and frankly insulting first proposal. But the real turning point? That arrives the very next day with his explanatory letter. That letter methodically destroys Wickham's lies and forces Elizabeth to completely reevaluate every single assumption she's made. This brings us to her most powerful realization in the book. Till this moment, I never knew myself. Elizabeth actually admits that her vanity and her prejudice blinded her completely. She always prided herself on her sharp discernment, her ability to read people, only to realize she was dead wrong about both Darcy and Wickham. She favored Wickham because he flattered her ego, and she hated Darcy because he slighted it. It's this massive moment of character growth. It's what makes her so human, so flawed, and honestly, so incredibly relatable.
Section 6. Why Austen Still Rules. The ultimate heroine.
So let's wrap up by looking at why her ultimate heroine proves this work is just as relevant to modern students today. Critic George Saintsbury argues that Elizabeth Bennet remains the ultimate literary heroine because of these specific, timeless qualities that completely defied 19th century tropes. She isn't some fainting, fragile flower. She is distinctly clever. She never attacks first, but she is utterly fearless against bullying. I mean, just look at how she stands up to the insanely wealthy Lady Catherine de Bourgh. And most importantly, she is a perfectly natural girl who owns up to her mistakes. Austen didn't just write a romance here. She created an absolute blueprint for modern, independent thought. Which leaves us with this final thought. Look at your own modern social dynamics and ask yourself, if you lived in Austen's world, would your pride or your prejudice be your downfall? Which of these cognitive biases would trip you up the most today? Do you, like Darcy, occasionally let an inflated sense of self-importance blind you to the worth of the people around you? Or do you, kind of like Elizabeth, let first impressions and a bruised ego color your judgment of a whole situation? Austen's true brilliance is that she forces us to look in the mirror. Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and remember, keep questioning those universal truths.